You may be seated. Well, I've been spending a lot of time with my sister and dad recently as we navigate the current phase of my grandmother's estate, and I've been reminded of some of the values that we were raised with. You see, my parents wanted to make sure that they carried on the tradition of raising strong, independent, successful women, which is a great thing, and I venture to say they did a good job with that. One of the ways we got here was to place a high value on strength, physical and mental, the ability to problem solve, to persevere, to never give up, and to never quit. In all things, to be able to pick yourself up by your bootstraps and keep going. So in the last couple of months, I have been reminded that I'm not as strong as I used to be. My sister and I have a great little competitive spirit between the two of us, and I keep finding myself on the losing end. This weekend, we had the opportunity to work together again. We had a plan, we had the tools we needed, and the goals for the day. We were prepared to solve the problems before us. I brought hand sanitizer, tacos, and water. My sister brought work gloves, a truck, and a trailer, playing to our strengths. The sun is barely coming up, and I arrive 5 minutes late. She is already at work, giving me the what for as I get out of my car. So nice of you to show up. Those better be the best tacos I've ever had. Classic sister material. As we got to work, it didn't take long for us to find our rhythm before it was disrupted by me running out of the house into the yard, dry heaving. Fun fact, I have a very weak stomach, and there are times when something just has a terrible smell, and it sends me to this place. So there I was before 8 a.m., doubled over in the front yard, and my sister yells from the front porch, reminding me of our family values. "You are ridiculous and weak." "Stay there, I got it." And in that moment, I was not going to let my pride get the best of me. I decided I'd let her have this win and just continue in this position. Until I heard the echoes coming through the front door of her dry heaving too. I stood straight up and walked over to the porch, peered inside and said, "You good?" She confirmed for me that my response might have been appropriate. Sweet justice. Today in our gospel reading, we have the story of the Beatitudes. This story is found in the Gospel of Matthew, is the beginning of the Sermon on the Mount. Jesus goes up to the mountaintop and begins to teach the disciples. Those who have gathered to hear these words of blessing are a mixed bag. You have some whose socio-political context is the Roman Empire and whose religious context was the elite Jewish folks. The Beatitudes would have been seen as a critique to both groups. Those who receive God's favor are not the privileged classes of the Roman Empire or the Jewish establishment. The Beatitudes are spoken to those groups whom God deems worthy, not by virtue of their own achievements or status in society, but because God chooses to be on the side of the weak. The forgotten, the despised, the justice seekers, the peacemakers, and those persecuted because of their beliefs. Another way to say this is in the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus is preaching to the oppressor and the oppressed. To those who are on top, to those in government and the elite, he says, "Come on down, your time up there is running out." And to those on the bottom, the forgotten and the mourning, he says, "Hold tight, you're moving on up." People often say what a wonderful teaching the Sermon on the Mount is, and that if only people would obey it, the world would be a better place. But if we think of Jesus simply sitting there telling people how to behave properly, we will miss what was really going on. These blessings, this wonderful news that he is announcing, he's not saying, try hard to live like this. He's saying that the people who are already like that, they're in good shape. The other thing Jesus was not doing was naming some truth about the human condition. Mourners go uncomforted. or that the meek do not inherit the earth, or that those who seek justice will take that desire to the grave. No, what Jesus was doing was making an announcement that this is just the start of the work that is coming true, that this is the upside-down nature of God's kingdom that is being proclaimed. This is not good advice or words to live by. This is the good news. Jesus is beginning a new era for God's people and God's world. In our world, still most people think that wonderful news consists of success and wealth, strength, and a long life, and winning. I don't know about you all, but there's plenty of times when the standards of worldly success feel so uncertain and unattainable. Maybe you just got a new job and you're not quite sure if it's going to work out. Like it looks good on paper and seems to fit, but you just can't trust that it's going to be your jam in 12 to 18 months. Maybe you're not feeling 100% and waiting on some test results from the doctor. Or you have a surgery coming up and you're putting on a brave face, but you are really freaking out on the inside. Maybe you're trying to navigate some fractured or broken relationships and you're not sure how you should go about repairing them. Being alone feels more manageable than diving into the pain. Maybe you're up against a system that is not designed for you to succeed. And every time you turn around, you just aren't on the winning side of it, leaving you to feel hopeless and out of options. Jesus is offering wonderful news to you, the weary, the sick, the peacemakers, the persecuted. Jesus' good news is you are blessed. You don't have to try and work and fix all of this in order to be blessed. You are blessed now, and there is nothing that you can do to remove yourself from that blessing. This understanding of blessing is not a state of being happy or bubbly. It's not an acceptance of the way things are. To be blessed is to know that you are included in God's kingdom. You are in, and there is nothing that is going to change that. There is nothing that's going to take you away or remove you from God's blessing. Hold on to that truth. Hold on to that promise. Hold on to it in the face of uncertainty. Hold on to it when you're up against it. Hold on to it when you are scared. How might we respond differently to the world around us when we are holding on to this truth? How might we handle that which is before us, knowing and being reminded that we are already blessed? The kingdom of heaven is not something that we attain at death. The kingdom of heaven was being ushered in with Jesus and continues to be ushered in now. In fact, in our gospel reading, we hear Jesus say in verse 3, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." Jesus doesn't say, theirs will be the kingdom of heaven. He says it in the present tense. It is their kingdom right now and always. There is nothing we must wait for. The other statement that is also in the present tense is verse 10. "Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteous' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." Blessed are those whose social lives and political affiliation and personal views change for the sake of the gospel. Jesus doesn't promise us a life that is easy or one that will stand in line with our parents, our friends, tradition, or financial interest. Jesus calls us to live in such a way that stands with the poor, the forgotten, the outcast. We stand there with them in love, knowing that we who might be on top of the social ladder right now won't always be there and need to come down a bit. We stand in love because we know what it is like to be poor in spirit, to mourn, to hunger for righteousness, to stand in need of mercy and to receive it, to be pure in heart and to strive for peace. What Jesus lays out before the disciples is not a prescription of how to live a Christian life. What Jesus does is present to the disciples a description of a free life, one that is not given in or over to the world's standards. I believe the values my parents and grandparents raised us with are not uncommon. For the boomer generation who had to raise millennials, they aren't terrible. We turned out all right. But they do get in the way, I think. They get in the way of this idea of always having to strive for something more, to working ourselves into the favor of the system or God's love. It also gets in the way of owning your own weaknesses and accepting them for what they are and accepting ourselves for who we are. We get so caught up in the competitive nature of the world in which we live, constantly striving, constantly working, needing to be the strongest, and always winning. We lose sight. We lose sight of the blessing that is before us, the blessing that we are living into, the blessing that calls us to stand in love and not competition, to stand in grace. This announcement of the good news is proclaiming that we are blessed and that the kingdom of heaven is ours and it's everyone else's too, and there's nothing we can do to change that. The gospel truth is good news for everyone. Jesus shows up and tells us the way in which we understand the world is wrong. He shows us the nature of his kingdom, and it appears upside down. I hope and I pray that we come to know and believe with great love and conviction that this is the right way up. Amen.